Chess friends, how are you? Today is a very nice day, and today Magnus Carlsen played with AlphaZero some games. I will show you one of the best brilliant between AlphaZero and Magnus. AlphaZero is good at attacking, and we'll see how he paralyzed his entire board and forced Magnus Carlsen to dance his pieces. Let's go. Alpha opened his game with e4, we have c5, Sicilian defense, and as you know there is many openings like d6, Old Sicilian and Sicilian with French variation, accelerated Dargan. So we have knight f3, Alpha can play Alpine defense to push the pawns, or Old Sicilian bishop here, also Sicilian traditional line knight c3, we have knight c6, bishop to b5, Rossolimo attack, d6 by black, Alpha played castle, bishop to g4 to pin the knight, which is called canal attack. Alpha wants to build the center by playing d4, after takes and takes, push the pawn to target the knight on c6, queen arrives on b6, bishop backs, Magnus takes the knight with his bishop, because it is the right exchange to do. Queen takes, and this queen moves creates a little problem with the bishop that he can target the bishop. Moving back the bishop is a sign of a timid, because he will not develop his tactics in there, so queen back to d1 to protect his childhood friend. Magnus says, why you give me extra move to play? Yes, do your best job. Knight f6, Alpha gains center space by playing d4, here if you think the pawn gets malaria, what about if I take the ill pawn? But if you take the pawn then queen here to punish your knight, Magnus will play the best move c4 to counter, after queen takes knight, pawn takes bishop, pawn takes, you shouldn't take the rook because you will lose your knight, and plus the rook, plus your king position will be bad, so, in this position, Magnus will move back his queen to protect the knight and maintain stable on queen side, and it is fall for you. White will develop his pieces like this. To activate his pieces before black active his pieces where rook will get the open file, so, here we have pawn to e5, Alpha closed the position with d5, knight a5 to target this, bishop backs rook d1, Alpha revolt with b4, pawn shots, pawn fires, knight escapes on c4, you might think the knight gets a very good outpost to pressure every squares of white, but no, Alpha will get a great outpost and this knight will be kicked out by Alpha, so Magician Alpha starts his tactic with a4. The pawn cannot take the pawn because the rook file will get active on there, bishop can come to check the king, there is 22 moves strategy where it will be plus 13 position for white. Magnus will be bewildered, you will not understand the strategy because you are inferior human with 2G brain. Fortunately Magnus played good move bishop e2, otherwise he will trashed into a basket, queen e2, he played castle. You might say why the evaluation bar is fully loaded to white. Black have the same pieces as white, it's not about who have extra piece. It's all about who have more positional play. Black's queenside looks terrible, so bishop to d3 by Alpha, queen backs, Alpha takes the pawn and you cannot take the pawn back because therefore you will lose your knight who is protected by the queen, it's called pieces combination, knight backs on b6, knight to d2, rook goes to c1 to enjoy the open file on c-file, knight to b3, the knight is coming to get the rights of a great outpost to rule black, as I told you. Have you ever see these moves in the previous position where black didn't castled? You didn't see it right, but I and Alpha see it all, because you and Magnus is a little kid in front of Alpha and me. Magnus slides the queen, knight a5, bishop backs, knight jumps into c6, and white have an unbreakable outpost, rook to b7, Alpha is creating so much pain to Magnus Carlsen, so he will open the king side, to get active on the f-file. Make sure you clear the position to double up your brothers because unity is power, and white will smack, that's all. Alpha go with his plan, pawn takes, bishop takes, the knight gets shame and hide his face in his nest, queen here, bishop here, rook a2, bishop backs, queen g3, Alpha's tactics is to doubling up the rooks, push the pawn to create another gameplay with the knight on here, so bishop moved up on f6, rook to f2, Magnus played h5 because he is a Stockfish subscriber too. Both of them are my family members, I mean everyone is my family who loved to play chess. Magnus have a very restriction position with his pieces on queenside and center, he have low space and low attitude, that's why he gets frustrated and played h5, h3, h4 by him, queen slides to f3, and it is called triple bondage of rooks as powerful as an atom bomb, g4, queen to e3, Alpha doesn't want an atom bomb, he want to sniper the bodyguard, after takes and queen takes. Alpha will push the pawn to e5 to sack the bishop on g6, after pawn takes, there is rook check on f8, and after king g2, queen takes h4, threatening checkmate on h8, that's the whole plan. And if you still can't memorize the arrow lines, then you can subscribe the channel to get more episodes to increase your power 2g to 5g. So here Magnus backs his bishop, we have bishop g5, f6 by Magnus, queen up to f4, the pawn cannot take the bishop, let me show you why. If it happen, then simply take the pawn. Because patience is the most important thing in war, love and chess. Rook here because black is out of moves, e5, targeting on the pawn, after takes, queen takes, threatening queen checkmate on h7, because this is covered by the rook and she is protected by his childhood friend. Can you remember it? At the beginning of the game queen helps the bishop and not the bishop helps the queen. Always help your friend who is fallen in a problem, then he will help you back. So, knight f6 to protect this. There is rook takes f6, and that's it. Black will face so many troubles, and how do black prevent the checkmate on h7? Have you any answer? So, back to the position, here we have queen to f7, queen on g4, pawn cannot take the bishop otherwise your queen will be shooted by the rook, so rook d7, bishop takes pawn, rook c7, to protect everybody on the 7th rank because Magnus knows chess needs combination to collide with pieces attacks, e5 by Alpha, pawn takes, bishop takes g6, snipering the queen and knight. If you try to save the knight by moving down the queen because queen cannot go there because of this, if qf8 happen to protect it, then queen h5 to checkmate you, so bishop blocks, bishop takes f6, knight or queen cannot take the bishop, because of two rook brothers, so after knight takes d5, bishop takes, knight takes bishop, rook takes f6, threatening the queen and the bishop. If you play queen to g7 choosing the middle way, then rook takes h6, threatening rook check on h8 to checkmate, no matter what black will play. For an example, if a5 happen, then rook check, queen takes, then rook f8 check, king takes, and queen takes h8. Which is called checkmate, because every squares are covered by the bishop knight and the queen. So, back to the position, we have queen takes d5, sacrificing the knight, bishop takes e8, queen c4, we have queen h5, threatening to play bishop takes f6, so, rook d6, now face bishop g6, threatening queen check on h7, knight to d5, here Alpha takes the pawn on e5, zocking the knight because you cannot take the knight, the rook file will be open, and it will be checkmate on queen h7, so q takes pawn, bishop check, king here. Rook e1, Alpha lasering the e-file, here if you play any other move, for example a6, then queen f7 checkmate, ops, it's not checkmate because of the rook, so did Alpha blunder his queen? Nope, there is checkmate on knight g6, what a beautiful queen sacrifice to give checkmate, everything ends except for the must, so, back to the position, here we have bishop h8, knight check, king ups, bishop enters, to give checkmate on h7 with the queen, you cannot take the bishop, because there is queen takes bishop check. After king here, queen to h7 will be checkmated. Do you want to see how? Here Magnus Carlsen resigned, and I played queen to f1 check, rook takes, king takes, queen takes, king ups, queen checkmate, because every squares are covered by somebody. You still didn't see it that every squares are covered by Alpha, right? Don't worry, it's not your problem, because you are an inferior human. Wish you all the best. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, bye bye, take care, see you soon.